Broadsword calling Danny boy.
Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today, I've decided to go through some of my older and some of my newer videos as well. I'm just going to show you a few clips and try and give you some hints and tips on how to determine sizes of anomalies and various objects on Mars. Now, what I've done, I've got up here, I've got a whole bunch of stuff up here. I've got some HiRISE images, I've got some long shot images from the rover. There's some close-ups, there's some sort of medium distance stuff, and there's all sorts of difficult things to work out the size of. Okay, now we'll start with this little guy. Now, this was one I published back, I think last year. Mars Mini Alien and Saber-tooth Tiger Anomaly. Now, this looks like a little alien guy. May not be, of course. In fact, from this angle, he does. This little dude here. It's like a doll, almost a doll-sized anomaly, this one. Probably no more than about a foot tall. Perhaps a bit less. Maybe sort of 10 inches, maybe. Really hard to say with this one because there's not a lot to compare it to. And as with many of these areas on the Mars surface in Gale Crater, there's nothing to compare it to. And with some sets of images, you do get the rover's tracks, which are 18 or 20 inches wide, I think, and you can use them as a ruler. So, if the rover happens to kind of almost run over something, like it did with the femur, which is not actually a femur bone. This is more like a humerus bone. If this was a femur bone, it would have a sort of ball joint here sticking out, and would be a lot bigger. Now, I initially, when I first published this, I thought, it's about a foot long. I thought it was somewhere like 10 to 12 inches, but actually it's smaller than that. It's only about 6 inches long. It's really hard to determine some of this stuff. There's a bit of more of a close-up there. And the thing is, I was looking at other people's videos and their different takes on this bone, and it is a bone. It's pretty obviously a bone. And I think it was Monty Williams. And Monty Williams has got a great channel. If you get a chance to check it out, do check it out. He's got some really cool videos, and his video skills are getting really quite sophisticated now, actually. And he's got a great sense of humour, and he does deal with a lot of these anomalies, but in a more of a humorous way. Pardon the pun. So yes, this may well be a humorous bone, but who really knows? I mean, if it's an alien bone, it could be for some type of creature we have no idea of, really. And there's also what looks to be an arrowhead, an ancient alien arrow tip, just here. See that? So that's worth checking out. I mean, I've done a full forensic style kind of examination of this area here, unlike most of the other videos you see, which are very short. Mine was probably way too long. It's about half an hour long, but it does go into a lot more detail about the bone and how to determine whether it is a bone or not. So it's well worth checking out. I hope I didn't go on too long about it, but sometimes you need more detail, and a lot of the time people want more detail as well. So you're kind of stuck between a sort of rock and a hard place, really, when it comes to the length of videos, because if you're too short, you can't get enough information in them, and if you're too long, people will switch over. So you've got to keep them interesting, keep them moving. So let's try and do that here. Now, could this be a mini Martian? Well, yes, but, and there's the big but here. Now, just because it looks like a little humanoid type mini Martian from this angle doesn't mean it is. And angles can be very deceiving. Now, this is a very grungy image, this one. From I can't remember which soul it's from. Let's have a look. No, there's the link to the guy who sent me this. There should be the Soul 186. There we go. Now, another typically grungy, overcompressed and resized set of images. But there's some interesting stuff in this. It's well worth downloading. And there seems to be like a carved effigy of a saber-toothed tiger or creature here, with two long tusk-like teeth here. See, really, really interesting. Um, I'll let it play a bit. There we go. Now it's highlighted. You can probably see it better. But this is right on the edge of the image. You can see these lines down the side here. This is right on the side of the image, on the right side, and the images tend to break up when they get to the edge. But it's what you'll see in a second when it comes up is that this guy will change. We'll see him from another angle. Now, when you're dealing with anything on these Curiosity images, you should always check for different angles on the same thing. They often show up in many photographs, and often on different sols as well, so because a lot of these sols will overlap each other. Now this guy only shows up in a few images because he's between a couple of rocks here, so you can only actually see him from a certain couple of angles. And I just flipped it around there just to see what he looks like the other way around. That's often a good idea if you're... Now here's the other angle coming up now. It's often a good idea to flip things around and reverse them, and because one of the things I used to do as a portrait artist is if I was doing a portrait of someone and I got stuck and I couldn't get it quite right, I would look at it in the mirror, and that is a good technique for looking for discrepancies and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool technique. Now this is the other angle. Now look at him now. It's the same guy. This is a bit further away, and the rover's moved along to the right, I think. Probably about 5 or 10 meters further on, something like that. Maybe less. So now look at him. Now he doesn't look like a little person at all. Now this looks more like a little sort of meerkat type thing. Okay, he's got more of a pointy nose here. Still stood up like a person, but doesn't look like a humanoid now. They should get in a little bit closer in a second. I mean, you can only zoom in so far with some of these things, and if you over zoom, like many people do, and I used to do, if you look at some of my older videos, I've really over zoomed in places, and it just pixelates. You can't really see what you're looking at, but you can just about make him out. He's got two arms hanging down, and his torso here, and he's got more of an animal-like facial feature there, more like a sort of a long sort of snout. So this is how easy it is to make mistakes when you're looking at stuff on Mars, because different angles, slightly different. Obviously, the light's going to be at a slightly different angle on the object. Now, obviously, being at a different angle here, you can actually see this carving a lot better. You can see the 2 feet sticking out here, and you can see an eye here. You can see the nose of the lion or tiger nose here, and upper lip. I mean, it's almost like a walrus. That's what I thought it was when I first saw it, like a walrus with its huge, great big tusks. I mean, who knows what it is? It may even be fossilized. Who knows? And I mean, you may want to look at this in closer detail in this video, but if you look really closely, you can just about make out some whiskers sticking out here. I don't know if it gets in close enough, but this is really weird, this one, and it's kind of been overlooked. Okay, there's the an extra enhancement there, but I'll just let that play. Now the thing is, I also made the mistake of in some of my earlier videos, and I'm sure other people have done this as well, of putting measurements in the video. Now the problem is, if you do that, you've got to be pretty sure about the size, and it's very hard to be sure about a lot of the sizes of objects on the surface, because there's nothing to compare them to, and you're working on assumption and kind of guesstimation really, and that can go badly wrong. Okay, let's leave that one now. We've done that one. Now, so what I try and do now is I give an estimated or approximate measurement perhaps, and I don't always put it in the video now. Unless it's a HiRISE image like this one. Now this can be measured on Google Earth. This is the video I did previously, and well, the last two videos on Mount Sharp, which actually looks like a massive, huge alien spaceship that's landed and has a load of kind of rock and stuff on top of it. May not be, of course. It could be a city, it could be none of the above. It could be natural, but it's probably not natural because it's too symmetrical. Mountains don't come ready-made like that, you know. I'll let that play a little bit. And now, so I'm pretty sure that the measurements that I've got in this particular video are exact. I mean, it's exactly 93 kilometers from tip to tip here, the widest part, because it's on Google Earth. So that was quite easy to work out. That was easy to actually determine. You can measure the ground distance, you can measure all sorts with Google Earth or Google Mars or whatever. It's good. It's pretty accurate, and much easier than dealing with other images like this one here. Now the Mars obelisk. This is another recent video. Now this is a HiRISE image. But taking it an angle, sort of an oblique angle of the surface, and it's sort of looking down, zoomed in with the telescopic lens, and it looks. You've really got to check this out. It's an awesome image to look at, and you can download it from the links here. There's a link, as always. There's links to all these images in my videos, so you can go to it and download it and check it yourself. And this is up in the top left corner of the HiRISE image, the source image, and there's this obelisk here. Now, how would you determine how big this is? Because unless you know the actual level of zoom and the actual height, or the effective viewing height of the camera, then you really cannot work out what size this thing is. So, I mean, I'm sort of guessing, and it is a guess, that this thing is very tall. And when I say very tall, I'm possibly 100 foot tall, possibly 200 feet tall. We may only be seeing the very top part of it, and there may be a lot of it obscured from us, because this is on a sort of on the near the top of a ridge, not right on the top of the ridge. It's a bit further back, so we're probably missing about a third or possibly half. This could come right down here. This could be enormous. This could be 300 foot tall. Conversely, it could be only 50 foot tall. But I'm guessing it's pretty big. And there's another sort of weird little very symmetrical looking object here, which is also probably another obelisk or similar type thing, possibly even a building. And there are probably others here in the background. Even pyramids, perhaps. Don't really know, because we're only seeing this part. So this one was hard to work out. So I didn't actually put the size of this object in the video or in the description, because I haven't worked it out yet, and I'm still trying to work it out. Very difficult to do. Basically, you've got to, with an oblique sort of telescopic shot from space like this is, you're really going to struggle to get any size from it, because there is no point of reference on the ground that you can determine the size of to measure it from. So that was really difficult. I do struggle sometimes, and I often go back and change stuff. I've even actually done remakes of videos because I wasn't happy with the size of the object and the size I put in the video, and I've actually done remakes and re-estimated the size and still got it slightly wrong the second time round. You can never be 100% sure with objects on the ground. Now this one is a very good example. This is the Mars Giant Ape that I published only a few days ago, a very recent one. Now this is the source image here. Now this is taken from Mars Rover's Images site, which is a French website, which is really cool. They do all these big panoramics, and they're really good. And you can really go to town on these, because there's a lot more information in them than a single little image here. So this is where the thing is. Now you can determine from this that it's actually quite a long way from the rover, and I'll let this play a little bit, and we'll see it coming a bit closer. Now I've gone in too quick already there. I should have done another interim stage between the full distance shot and the zoom in. So that's a bit disorientating. Now, this looks like an ape skull. It may not be an ape. It may be a humanoid. Don't know. But it looks very much like a gorilla skull with some hair texture still on the skull here, on the right here. And you can see an eye here. You can see nasal cavity or nose there. You can see some teeth here. Lower jawbone missing, as is very common with skulls. Very rarely, if you're a fossil hunter or a paleontologist or a zoologist or archaeologist, you very, very rarely find a skull with its jawbone still intact, because it just comes away very easily when the flesh breaks down, and may often be carried off by another predator or something. So, and the same with all the other bones. And you often see, I've got lots of these skulls on Mars. Some of them are humanoids, some of them are animals, many animals, and loads of lizard skulls and mammals, and you name it. I've got all sorts. And a lot of people are saying, well, why are these animal skulls always left on their own? Why aren't there bones? Where's the rest of it? Well, as I've said before, on Earth, these things get dragged off, and the skull often gets left behind because there isn't much fleshy material to eat on a skull. Very little, in fact. So they just get left. And if there are predators, they will take the other parts of the body away to eat them. And often the bones get scattered over a very wide area. So this is why these things are often left on their own, because they're not really edible. Let's go in a little bit closer. Now, I've called this a giant ape skull because, by Earth standards, this would be a giant. Now, a gorilla skull is big in comparison to a human skull. It's probably more than double the size, and mass and weight, possibly even bigger, depending on how big you are. But an average human skull would probably be about 9 inches, 9 to 10 inches front to back. Okay, so you can just put your hand on your head and work it out, something like that, about 9 inches. Okay, so now this thing is way bigger than that. It's bigger than a gorilla skull from Earth. And a gorilla skull would probably be something in the region of about 15 inches long. And of course there are different types of gorilla. the Highland gorilla is, I think, the largest type, the one that lives up in the mountains, and they get really big. And these are incredibly strong creatures, on Earth at least. I mean, one of these things could tear you limb from limb if it really wanted to. They are much stronger than humans. They are something between 5 and 10 times stronger, physically stronger than the human being. Even a powerlifter, a Russian powerlifter, or an Olympic powerlifter, is a weakling in comparison to a gorilla or even a chimpanzee. They are incredibly strong creatures, and this thing I estimate to be something in the region of about 20, I'd say 2 to 3 foot. So this is it's not massive, but when you look at the distance from the camera, it must be at least 2 or 2.5 feet long, possibly 3 foot long, for it to even show up this well. And it's not a great image because it's taken on a warm afternoon on Mars, and there's heat haze. The heat's reflecting off the surface, which is quite hard, some of it, and it gets quite hot. So you're getting a lot of heat distortion here, which is why it's kind of blurred. And when you zoom in, it doesn't get any better. I've enhanced it there, and you can only go so far with these images. And I've enhanced it more there, but actually it degrades the image if you push it too hard. And when you get even closer, it doesn't get any sharper. And this is the real problem. Now, there's a good reason for that. And it's not just because of heat reflecting off the surface and warming up the rock and causing heat haze. It's not just because of that, and not just because the camera sees a near infrared, which would pick up on that distortion even more than a normal camera would. But the Mastcam never seems to be in focus. And why is that? Because it's set to infinity. Now, I don't know if any of you out there are photographers, but I'm quite a keen photographer and have some pretty cool cameras. Um, and what they do with the Mastcam is it's set to infinity because it's designed just to be able to take lots and lots of photos without really having to do much else. All it's got to do is point the camera and shoot. And it's designed specifically, or it's not designed specifically to do that, but they've set it up to do that, to save themselves a lot of farting about with zooming in and out and refocusing. And I mean, most cameras have autofocus and all that now. And also, I really do think that that NASA are using face recognition software to get rid of anomalies like this. Now, the only reason this is so obviously a skull, and I think it is pretty obviously an ape skull or something similar. And now in blue, actually, you can see it a lot better. I've highlighted that. You can see the eye, the nose, and the teeth down here. And even some hair detail here. That texture is hair. Now, what was I saying? Yes, I really do think that they are using face recognition software whilst processing these images before they put them on the website. Why do I think that? Because you almost never see on Mars a skull looking straight at you. Now, if you go through all my videos and look at all my thumbnails, you'll see that most of them are looking to the side or at an angle, and you don't see the two eye sockets looking right at you. You don't see that. And I really do think they're using face recognition software to actually get rid of this stuff. And then what you get then, if it's looking straight at you, is a big block. Now, Will and Will at What's in the Sky 37 channel and lots of other people have pointed out this, lots of other Mars anomaly researchers, that when they're looking at close up at some of these images, you get these great big blocks, like someone's gone in with a blur tool and blocked the whole thing out and obfuscated it and basically destroyed the evidence. And we know that NASA do destroy evidence. They've done it before. A few years ago, they destroyed a fossil that they found with I think it was with one of the other rovers. I think it was Opportunity. A few years back, actually found a fossil on a rock, and instead of taking some close-up images of it and carefully examining the object, they drilled a hole right through the thing and destroyed it. So they're deliberately destroying evidence on the surface. And when they do find evidence like this bone here, they don't take samples. They do drove straight over this thing. And there's lots of there looks to be other bone fragments here. Just here, there looks to be there's a piece of bone here that is identical in colour to this one here. And there's lots of other interesting little bits and pieces in here, like the possible arrowhead there at the bottom. So, they're not interested. And as I said in my recent video on Mount Sharp, they are a military organisation, and they are not interested in bones, skulls, carved artifacts, and stuff like that. They really don't give a toss. And the Curiosity mission is run by military people. It's pretty obvious now. I always suspected it, and I think many people have kind of suspected it for a long time. And there was kind of a military takeover of parts of NASA, I think back in 2007, which is a long time ago now. And possibly due to the military nature of some of the anomalies on Mars that I've uncovered, but other people as well. Basically, they don't want us to see this stuff. They are obliged to publish it because the taxpayer in America pays for it. So they are entitled to get images and free information from NASA. But NASA are kind of dragging their feet as usual with a lot of this stuff, especially the Mars femur bone was not a femur. The Mars bone is a very good example of their reaction and just saying it's an eroded rock, which is utter nonsense. So I won't whinge on about too much about NASA, but they are a military organisation. They were taken over by the US military They always were a military organisation, but they had a lot more freedom in the past. Since around 2007 or 2009 or whatever it was, they have been, a lot of them were forced to leave because they had to ridiculous security checks. Over 100 employees left, veteran, highly thought of scientists and advisors. So I think NASA really now are on their decline, and I think the fact that loads of other nations are now racing to Mars will probably be the nail in the coffin for NASA, unless they really change their attitude, because people are really kind of getting pissed off with this stuff, because we're all finding stuff and NASA just come out with bullshit all the time, and I can't really see that changing unless there's a change from the top. This is coming from a high level in NASA, and I think there's some good people there who want to do good science, and they want to show us this stuff. And I'm sure that some of them are leaking it to some of us people and various other websites and things like that. So there are good people at NASA, and I think on the whole they are good scientific investigators who want to show as much as they can to everybody. But they've been gagged. They've been gagged by military people higher up in the echelons of power, and they've been gagged. I really do think that they are literally having a gun held to their head. I really do think that they're being threatened with losing their jobs and possibly a lot worse. So we've got to feel sorry for these guys and girls in a way, because they're doing their best to show us this stuff, and they're not really being allowed to. Okay, let's crack on. I'm blabbering on as usual. Now, this is another good example, this video, of how difficult it can be to determine the size of objects. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff in this one. This is doing really well, this one. Over 5,000 views, this one. Mars crash mini aircraft and multiple alien skull anomalies, this one. Okay. Well worth a look. Now, I've been kind of slated for some of the stuff in this video because people can't get their head around the fact that in some areas there are so many different things to see so close together. And this isn't typical of a Mars image at all. This is exceptional, this one. There's a link to it down here. I think it's Sol 50, this one. Yeah, Sol 50. And there are so many anomalies in here, I couldn't even do them all in one video. It's just ridiculous. But I had to put them in one video because they're all so close together. So I tried. And I've probably left quite a few out. There's probably dozens more in here that I didn't get through because the video has to conform to certain restrictions. Sorry about that. So I'll kind of let that play through a little bit. Now in here there's what looks like a dinosaur skull with a weird thing next to it. There's a weird kind of bomb-shaped thing which may not be a bomb. There's just here. There's like a little mini canoe thing. I mean, there's so much in here. Now, of course, when you see what looks like a dinosaur skull here, which is possibly what it is, may not be, but it looks like one. I'll just pause that. Now, everyone assumes dinosaurs are big. And we're sort of led to believe they're all massive, great, ginormous, sort of reptilian monsters. But in fact, a lot of dinosaurs aren't very big, and a lot of them weren't very big, I should say. I mean, there may still be some up there on Mars. We don't know. Probably not. I don't think there's much left up there, if anything at all. And most of this stuff we're seeing is ancient remains. But the fact that some of them are in such good condition kind of leads you to believe that they're not that old, but they could be, because if there's only 0.5% oxygen up there, which I think there may or may not be true, then these things will be very well preserved because they would not rot, basically, and the temperatures would preserve them and freeze dry them, as I've said many a time before. I'll let that play through. We don't want to linger too long on this. There's tons of stuff in this thing. Let's flick forward a little bit. We don't want to linger too long because we should have sped it up, really. So yeah, there's so much in here that I'll flick through that. Okay, I mean, That's a very abstract looking object. Couldn't tell you how big that is because I don't have any comparison. There seem to be what look like feet or even shoes or whatever in this. There are shoes, and there's this little aircraft thing here. And now, why would something that small look like an aircraft? It's like a almost like a toy airplane, like a remote control thing. Now, what I'm trying to get across here is that it's almost impossible. Now, this is a good example. Now, this may or may not be a canoe. It looks like a canoe. It looks like the front end of a canoe. And now the problem is this is only approximately about a foot long. 12 is somewhere between probably 9 and 14 inches long. Don't know. Really don't know. I've struggled so badly with some of this stuff at Sol 50 because everything is out of context. You have tiny things which may be toys or things that belong to mini Martians, like the little guy I showed you earlier. And there seems to be other things that are giant. So in the space of a few meters, you have specimens of animal specimens that are like this thing here. This looks like another ape skull, which could be very big, and looks kind of similar to the one I showed you at the beginning of this little lecture here. This one up here, where is he? There, him. Not dissimilar. Okay, just here. Now I'll let that play through because it will highlight him in a sec. And so it's not until you start getting a large collection of objects together from all different parts of Mars, or different parts of Gale Crater at least, that you start to realise that some of these things are related and they must be similar in size and stuff like that. Now this giant ape is not the same shape as that other one. It could be... Oh, hang on, sorry, there he is. Now, I'm guessing this is a bit smaller. This is probably about 15 or 18 inches. Really can't tell you. And there's definitely something here next to this weird little canoe thing, but it's been blocked out. You see that square? It's been totally blocked out. That is a deliberate obfuscation by NASA. Now I'm guessing, if my own theory is correct, which it may not be, but I'm pretty confident about this, is that if they're using face recognition software to blot out or recognise skulls that are looking at the camera, and then blocking them out, and this could be an example of that. This block here is completely artificial. It's been added afterwards, and it's not even a compression block. That is a deliberate attempt to destroy information here. See? Now the whole image is blocky because it's been resized and overcompressed, as I keep saying. But this block here, that's one big kind of blur tool they've used there, square tool, and just kind of shoved it over the thing and blurred it out. So I'm guessing there's probably a really nice skull looking straight at us here, right behind this object and between these two things. And that is why we ain't seeing it, because they've already determined there's something to cover up there. The software's told them so, and they possibly even manually have gone in there with a blur tool and scrubbed it. And you can see this on Google Mars a lot. A lot of the building structures around Cydonia and I mean, I do recommend this University of Berlin website here, because you can get, if you want to do sort of survey the actual larger stuff on the Martian surface, like the face and that kind of thing, and Cydonia. This is Cydonia here, and stuff like that, and possible pyramids and buildings and that kind of thing. If you want to really get some good quality high res images, then you'll get much better stuff here from Berlin than you will from NASA at the moment. These are much better, and you've got everything here. And if you look at the menu on the left of this page here, you've got absolutely every single major geological feature is represented here, and you click on whichever one you want. I mean, there's some stuff here I've never even heard of, and this is just awesome. This could keep you happy for years, this website, as long as they don't get shut down. You could download almost any part of Mars you can possibly imagine, I think. and you've got every crater and every sort of major mountain, every sort of major geological feature. It's awesome. So I'll put the link of that in the description. Well worth a look. You can get some great stuff here, and you can get high-res TIFF images and everything. Proper big stuff. Okay, so well worth looking at that. Well worth it indeed. Right, okay, we're nearly done. Now this is another thing that I thought was much bigger, and in fact now having a relook at it now, I actually think it's really quite small. Now this is Sol 439. And just behind this, where it says image here, this is the source image. You're seeing it in its entirety here. There's a little guy, or it looks like a little guy behind a rock. And he looks like he's taking a piss as well, which he may not be, but I had to call the video that because I couldn't think of what else to call it. And you'll see him just here, and then it will zoom in, just where my pointer is. There's a little guy behind this rock here. Just there. See him? And there we go. We're going to start zooming in now. Now, this is very disorientating because it looks like a little humanoid sort of figure behind a rock with a hat on. And I thought that this was further away and that the camera has zoomed in and we're getting sort of making him look actually much bigger than he really is. But actually, on re-examining this earlier today and yesterday, I've now come to the conclusion that this guy is really small, and this rock is quite small, and this rock may only be a couple of feet wide. It's really, really hard to tell. Now, I don't know how tall you guys are out there, but I'm 5'9". Now the rover camera, the Mastcam, is over 6.5 foot up in the air. It's really quite high up. Now, to get an idea of what it's like to be that tall, you've got to stand on the chair, right? And maybe grab the toaster from your kitchen. Okay, now you know how big your toaster is. They're usually about 9-10 inches long or something like that. Okay, depends on what sort of toaster you got. Okay, now what I would do is get an old toaster, maybe not your new one. Get a chair, go out in your garden, and stand on the chair, and then throw the toaster to the throw it about 10 or 15 feet away, say 15 feet away from you, and then look at it from the perspective of being about 6.5 or approximately 6.5 to 7 foot tall. You're right up there, okay? Now that's basketball player country there. You're up there. Now, unless you're a basketball player or really tall, you're going to have real trouble with these Mastcam images from the rover, because that is how tall it is. That's how high it is, and it's looking down on everything. Now this is very disorientating. And this guy I assumed was much bigger, and that it was closer to this object, but actually it's really, really hard to tell. There's no point of reference whatsoever in this image, and I'm going back over it and trying to determine how big this. Now I've said this rock is 8 foot wide. That's totally wrong. That is totally, utterly, way overestimated. It's, if anything, it's probably only a few foot wide at most, judging by some of the recent stuff that I published and worked on, and watching a lot of other people's videos. This is why you should never put the measurement in the bloody video, because you can't change it. All you can do is change the description and change it that way. So that was a big mistake there. This is nothing like 8 foot wide, this rock. And if this is more like 3 foot wide, then this guy is much smaller. And when I say much smaller, a lot smaller. that is. See, I estimated this guy to be between 5 and 6 foot tall. If this is only a 3 foot rock, then he's only about a foot tall. So, you can probably, if it is a guy, and it may not be, maybe some weird carving or something, but when you look at it for long enough, you can see a kind of zip down the middle and 2 arms, and a weird looking big sort of leather sort of brown hat with a sort of weird rim to it, and his little face in the middle. I'll play it through a little bit. Uh, and of course, this would also explain why a lot of these images are so blurred, because actually a lot of these things are much, much smaller than we think they are. And even when you enhance it, like I've done there, and zoom in, it doesn't get a lot better. Why? Because it's really small. If this was the size, if this was 8 foot across, this rock, which it's not, it's more like 3 foot. If this was an 8 foot rock, you'd see an awful lot more detail here. A lot more detail than we're getting there. And I'm really going to have to update some of this stuff because the size estimation on this is completely out, totally out on that. I mean, way out. I'm normally only a few inches out on these things, but that's way off the mark. Right, now lastly, we're just going to have a quick look at this guy. Like I said, we always assume that dinosaurs are really big and stuff like that, and I assumed that with this one as well. But this is quite small, and that is actually a good measurement, 15 centimeters in width. That is actually pretty well on the money, I think. And from chin to the back of the head, about 30 centimeters long, which isn't not very big. That's only about a foot. Almost exactly a foot, actually. It may be a little longer, maybe a bit shorter. If anything, it's slightly bigger, this one. But this was also very hard. There's no point of reference in here. There is, with this shader outcrop image, which it came from, this is right up in the top right corner of the image, right on the edge. There is a ruler guide on this one, but I actually think the ruler guide is way off the mark, and I had to upscale it from there. I worked it out. According to the ruler guide, this thing is only about 10 centimeters long. Really? I don't think so. So I kind of upscaled it from that, because I really think that the ruler guide was way off the mark on this one, and a lot of people have thought that, but not as far off the mark as some people are saying, but off the mark, yeah, for sure. And this is another example of when you zoom in too much, you can't see any detail, but it certainly looks like a dinosaur with his eye there and his mouth and stuff, you know. And when you see the comparisons, it's quite uncanny, really. So yeah, I mean, looking at this one, it's nowhere near as big as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it's very similar in morphology. But it could be a juvenile, you know, not a fully grown one. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of these dinosaurs on Mars, or that were on Mars, were enormous, just like ours. Some of them may have been bigger. And you know, if you compare it to this very narrow Tarbosaurus one, it's not a T-Rex. The T-Rex is on the right here. The Tarbosaurus has got a very long, narrow nose here, see? And it's almost identical in morphology to a Tarbosaurus. And lots of kind of dinosaur experts have looked at this and told me it is a dinosaur. I have people that collect dinosaur fossils that I know, and it's almost unmistakable, you know, when you see it. Okay, so I think we'll call it a day now. We've covered everything. Size does matter, especially when it comes to Mars, but it's very difficult to determine with these things, because some of the creatures are not fully grown. Some of them are juvenile creatures. Some of them are giant. Some of them are minuscule little mini Martians. Where's the mini Martian gone? This guy's probably only about a foot tall, which does kind of fit with a lot of the small things that other people are finding as well. And I found really small little shoes and stuff, and little helmets and bits of clothing which are really small. But on conversely, I've also found very big stuff as well. This is small. This guy's pretty big. You know, this is huge. Don't know how huge. This is possibly 100 foot tall, possibly only 50 foot tall. I'm guessing it's over 100 foot tall, this thing, or it's somewhere in that ballpark. So it is really hard, and you've got to do a lot of image comparisons and look at other people's stuff as well, and which can help when you're working out the sizes of these objects and anomalies. And don't make this mistake I've made and put the measurement in the video. Just put it underneath, and you can always change the description. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hoping that wasn't too long for you. I'll see you soon.